So with that being said, let's go into the next part of the Chazon Ish, Emunah V'Bitachon Sefer. We are at the end of the third part of the first chapter. So the first section of Emunah and Bitachon has several parts. We are at the end of the third part, where the Chazon Ish, Zchuto Tagen Aleinu, says the following: ומנעימות החוכמה לחזות בקשר של החיים עם האוויר העולם, העצור בחמצי ופחמי, ואשר לסוכן בין האדם והאוויר נמנתה היריעה בעלת 7 תאים, וניתן לכוח הנשימה לשאוף את החמצי, להשקות שדה וגן של החי, הם בשרו ודמו. עצמותיו וגידיו, הוא נכבד מאוד בין צבא לוחמי מלחמת החיים של האדם. In English, one of the joys of wisdom is to contemplate the connection between life and air. We'll obviously delve into what that means momentarily. Its elements being oxygen and carbon dioxide. So already at the time of the Chazon Ish, although he never went to med school, never went to took any chemistry classes, he was extremely well aware of what is standard knowledge in today's scientific world, but not necessarily was as standard back then. He tells you, no, we understand that air, you have the oxygen, you have carbon dioxide, very, very familiar with the mechanics of the world. And he says that when you have wisdom, which wisdom, chokhmah, means Torah. When you have Torah, it leads you to contemplating the connection between the fact that you have life and air. What connection? It says the agent acting between a human being and the air is the 7-lobed lung, which was given the ability to breathe the oxygen into the body, so that the living body, which means the blood, the flesh, the bones, and sinews, can be maintained. The lung is one of the body's many soldiers in the battle of life. So here, he's in essence talking about the koach haneshima, the power to breathe. How a person that connects to Torah and wants to build themselves the right hashkafa, the right ideology, must continue to delve at himself, at herself, at their own, at the fact that they were created, at the fact that they were manufactured by a supreme being that gave them mechanics that are beyond their understanding. But even if they were to delve into the mechanics of their creation, they would be enamored at the Creator itself. Now, when a person understands breathing, most of the time doesn't carry that much weight. Now it may carry some more weight because of what's going on with Corona, but a day before Corona became something that the news even mentioned. Most people, unless they had asthma or they saw somebody choke to death, most people never really valued breathing so much. Why? You do it 15,000 times a day, literally. The average human being breathes 15,000 times per day. When was the last time you took a breath and said, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you? When? Never. Why? It's us, it's humans. We're so used to it, we figured that this is the way it's supposed to be. And that's the failure. Now, when you think about breathing, before you even start at the mechanics of how your lungs work and how you could actually live even with one lung, although difficulty, but nonetheless you can live, but how you can cause a lot of damage to your lungs over an extended period of time, but they continue working until Hashem decides simply that they stop. And some people say, yeah, but if you smoke, you're going to kill yourself. Well, not necessarily. Why? There's plenty of people that smoked for 80 years and didn't die. They died from old age. They didn't die from smoking. And there's plenty of people that after smoking for 10 years, they got cancer. Oh yeah, see, he died from smoking. No, he died because Hashem decided to kill him. That's why he died. Smoking definitely didn't help because he put himself at risk. And you shouldn't put yourself at risk. And as a mitzvah in the Torah, you have to protect your neshama. You have to protect your body. You shouldn't do things that are harmful. But nonetheless, smoking was not the reason why he died. Sinning was the reason why he died. Now, scientific world doesn't accept such explanations. Scientific minded also don't accept such explanations. Why? It removes control from their hand. Because they believe they have a handle on creation. They have a handle on why people live and why people die. Yet, when the whole Darwin theory came into market, there was a meeting of the leading philosophers in the world held in Philadelphia about what to do with this new theory, with this Darwin theory. That until this day people will mention his name even though none of his followers, not a single one of his followers actually follows what he says. But they still call themselves Darwinism. Point being that at the time of Darwin, there was a famous professor named Professor Francis who gave a speech in this symposium or meeting in Philadelphia in the United States, and told them that no matter what Darwin says or doesn't say, none of you philosophers and none of the scientists that would follow would ever be able to explain creation. You can never explain where does the first cell come from. You can never explain where does life begin with. And surely, even Darwin himself cannot explain the logistics and how and why these things happened the way he says they happened, without a reliance on faith into something that's beyond nature, that's beyond our understanding. In so many words, faith in God is a prerequisite to believe in anything if you still want to classify yourself as a wise person. Now, the good news is that Professor Francis was not the first one to say this. In fact, if he would have read the Rambam, Hilchot Yesodei Torah, he would have saved himself many, many other books, because it's the first halacha. It's the first halacha. The Rambam writes in Hilchot Yesodei Torah, which translates to the halachot of the foundation of the Torah. This is anyone that wants to learn Torah, live by the Torah, comply with the Torah, say that they are a ben Torah or a bat Torah. These are the rules that have to be a prerequisite for such a person. And the Rambam's first halacha means, there's a klal in Judaism, Rishon Chashuv. First thing is the most important. The Chachamim did not put something first or second or third or fourth just because of alphabetical order, or just because the first thing that came to their mind. In essence, when they mention something first, or they mention something last, there's a reason for it. So the Rambam starts the Mishneh Torah, the entire series called the Rambam also. He starts it with one halacha. In Perek Rishon, he says the following: Yesodei Yesodot ve'amud ha'chochmot לדע שיש שם מצוי ראשון, והוא ממציא כל נמצא, וכל הנמצאים משמיים וארץ ומה שביניהם לא נמצאו אלא מאמיתת הימצאו. Translation: the foundation of all foundations and the pillar of wisdom is to know that there is a primary being who brought all existence into being. All the entities in the heavens, the earth, and what is in between them came into existence only from the truth of His being. In so many words, to minimize micro, what the Rambam just told us, before you talk about any halacha, before you talk about any musar, before you delve into any book that has to do with Judaism, before you can even classify yourself not only as a Jew, but as a righteous Noahide, or even as a person that claims to possess chokhmah, wisdom, you have to understand this rule. What is this rule? There has to be a creator. There has to, the foundation of all foundations, the pillar of all wisdom, meaning everything that you have must stand on something, a foundation. And you say, yeah, but the foundation itself is on something. Yeah, okay, so that pillar that's holding the foundation, the pillar of wisdom, the foundation of all foundations, you must know that there has to be a primary being who brought all of existence into being. That there has to be a single, unlimited, infinite creator. Without that as a first belief, we cannot even start. Which means, if somebody does not believe in this, whether they believe that in nothing, that we came from mud or something, or some molecule, or they believe we came from some guy, or they believe that we went from some woman that had a dream, or whatever they believe that's outside of this, the Rambam gives them an echsher of stupidity. Not wise. You know, there's echsher, there's badatz, there's bet Yosef, there's echsher of stupidity from the Rambam. Why? He says this is wisdom. All wisdom begins with this. You don't believe that we came from a single being? You're stupid. Yeah, but he has 87 degrees. Exactly, 87 degrees, verifying his stupidity. Yeah, but what about all these scientists? Stupid. Yeah, but they did so many great things. A lot of stupid people do great things. Doesn't mean that they... I'm not saying they're stupid in everything. They could be good at math. They could be good at archaeology. They could be good in architecture. They could be good in a lot of different things. But as far as understanding creation, stupid. Dumb as a rock. Actually, the rock's smarter because the rock knows its creator. In fact, the Torah says the donkey even knows its creator. Chamor yodeh et kono. He knows its creator, his owner. You don't know who made you? Problem. And that's why the Rabbi Akiva in the Midrash says, just think about this, people that think that we came from nothing. That we came from... You're never going to say, this shirt came from nowhere. He says, everyone knows you see a shirt, there has to be someone that sewed the shirt. Has to be someone that sewed the shirt. If you see a house, there had to have been somebody that built the house. Now, the house didn't, just some hurricane, didn't gather some parts from all parts of the country and put the house together with the windows exactly in the right place, and this is glass and the other is sheetrock, or if you're in Europe, this is cement. They didn't do that. No one thinks that. You're never going to say, wait a minute, that drawing, that painting came by itself. There has to be a painter. Rabbi Akiva says, has to be a painter, there has to be a sewer, there has to be a builder. But yet the paper, also you're going to say, didn't come from nothing. Why? It came from a tree. What are you going to say? The tree came by itself. The paper didn't come by itself, but the tree came by itself. The byproduct didn't come by itself. But the product, which is much more sophisticated, the source, which is much more sophisticated, oh, that came by itself. And yet call yourself wise. You obviously know that the tree cannot have come by itself. Somebody had to plant it. No, maybe it's really old. Okay, so somebody a long time ago planted it. No, maybe it's really, really old, millions and millions of years. Okay, so millions and millions of years. Let's play your game. So millions and millions of years ago, somebody planted it. Why did somebody have to plant it? Because it cannot plant itself. And if the tree cannot plant itself, surely the world cannot make itself and make one part land, one part ocean, a mechanics of the world, laws within the world that allow life to exist, where you notice that you yourself breathe air. How come you need as much air as possible? You need air. You cannot be restricted with air. And you happen to live, coincidentally, in the only place in the universe that could supply you this air. If you lived on Mars, you wouldn't survive. Lived on Pluto, wouldn't survive. But here you survive. How come this happenstance, this coincidence, this molecule turning into a lot of things didn't happen over there? Oh, but we don't know. We know. Why? Torah says we know. The point being, Rabotai, is that anyone that delves on creation and understands that the universe itself, just where it's positioned, just the laws of physics, just your own body understands that this obviously has to have a designer. Now, you'll see that there are many scientists, especially the original scientists. We're not talking about this generation of kofrim. Even though there are many scientists that have done tshuva in recent generation. But nonetheless, the scientists that came before them, which everyone knows, the scientists that came before the ones today, were much more sophisticated, much more wise than the scientists of today. The scientists of today just developed the original idea. Very few scientists today come up with anything original. It's rare as can be. What are they doing? They're developing a pre-existing idea. And you ask any wise person, what's more difficult? To come up with an innovation of an existing idea, or to come up with an original idea that's valid? No person with a normal IQ will tell you that innovation is more difficult than original idea. So we know that Sir Isaac Newton and the people of his generation, and Aristotle and Plato and so on and so forth, obviously the Rambam, the Ramban, they're also scientists, very accomplished as well. They not only believed in God, but believed in the same very God that we have in the Torah. Now you have a bunch of people with YouTube channels feel like because they have 1 million views in some of their videos, they're accomplished. You know when they're going to realize they're not so accomplished? When Corona arrives at their door. When death arrives at their door. When they choke on food. When they're constipated. When they arrive at the hospice center and they know that they're the ones that's not leaving. They're no longer the visitor. That's when they realize, maybe I was wrong. It's a very famous atheist. His name was Steve Jobs. Had all the money in the world. Smart guy in technology, even smarter in marketing. But when it came to existence, when it came to the purpose of life, one of the dumbest people in the history of man. But at least he was smart and honest enough that before he died, and he realized that his $10 billion was not able to afford him a single lung, a single limb, a single anything. He couldn't afford anything. He needed to buy one liver. That's it. One liver to live a little longer. He couldn't. Couldn't afford liver. With $10 billion. You should never ever complain about Parnassah again. You're already worth $10 billion. You have a liver that works, Baruch Hashem. Steve Jobs would have paid you $10 billion for it. Couldn't find one. But before he died, he says, maybe I should have delved into the Creator a little bit more and figure out if there is one or there isn't. Well, now he's finding out firsthand. It's just too late, though. Smart guy in marketing. Marketing is not worth anything in Shemaim. If anything, marketing is not so good. Why? You market things that are against Hashem. Why? Because people follow him. And that's why, Rabotai, people that are accomplished in the scientific world, where people will follow them and follow their opinion, intentionally or unintentionally become machtiei rabim, become people that cause the public to sin, which makes it even more difficult for them to do tshuva. According to the Rambam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want those people to do tshuva with his help. They have to do it on their own. He doesn't help them. That's the punishment for causing people to sin. As Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught us, in the Gemara, that a person that causes other people to sin is even worse than a person that kills somebody. Because a person that kills somebody, he killed him, he killed his body, but at least that person will still go to Olam Haba. The person that died is still going to Olam Haba. Somebody murdered him, but if he kept Shabbat, kept mitzvot, he's going to Olam Haba, he's going to heaven. But a person that caused him to sin, caused him to go start praying to Yoshke, caused him to go start violating Shabbat, caused him to go do things that are against Hashem, he lost his Olam Haba. So surely the guy that caused people to sin is much worse than a murderer.